Welcome, people of the YouTubes. This is a video over Heart Month. And as you can tell by my username, my name is Andrew, and I would like to make this video explaining why it's important, how you can get involved, and go over some cases of what you might see, and how to protect yourself. I hope by the end of this video you are much more well informed and I have done a good job. This is a big thing. We don't really talk about this much. Heart Month, that is. I didn't even know that February was called Heart Month, and I'm pretty sure you're like, but there's stuff all over the place. Just people putting up like awareness stuff, like posters and ribbons and something. I didn't know. I don't see any of that stuff. But maybe this will help somebody else that hasn't either. To get started, I should begin with what Heart Month is. This month is split off to spread awareness, and it was deemed Heart Month. The first celebration took place February in 1964, and it was claimed by President Lyndon B. Johnson on December 30th, 1963. Proclamation number 3566. And I didn't know this stuff. It seems very interesting to me. In the month of February, there are 6 dates considered important. American Heart Month, the 1st of February, all the way to the end of February. Today, the 28th, when I'm making this video. Then there's National Wear Red Day, which is the 2nd day of February. This is a day set apart, specifically in the month, that is set apart in itself to spread awareness. And then February 4th, World Cancer Day, and February 14th, Valentine's Day. Don't you see why this is Heart Month? Makes sense, doesn't it? Then the 14th is also National Donor Day. Then the 14th is also National Donor Day. As well as the 19th is President's Day. I guess that makes sense when it was a president that proclaimed that this should be a month dedicated to heart. Isn't that romantic? Ugh. Well, that's enough for the basic information. Now, carrying on, I wanted to get right on into how to get involved. You could very easily get involved just by a simple Twitter post or Facebook post or a picture on Instagram with some caption like celebrating Heart Month, Valentine's Day, some bunch of hearts in the background. And other than that, I'll have in the description a link to the contact page of the American Heart Association. On the page itself, there's a link for donations, which can go to save so many lives. But carrying on, why is it important for this month to exist? For us to spread awareness? That would probably be because at least 1 in 4 deaths of all deaths in the U.S. are due to heart disease. Now, it's probably going into your mind like, what is this person talking about? How can that possibly be? There's 1 in 4 for everything else. Well, this is legitimate because when you look at it, some of these diseases are just caused by aging, and that causes a lot of deaths at older ages. And another reason why this month is important is because you could help save so many lives just by spreading awareness about heart disease and how to prevent it. Now, I'm not going to say that you can prevent every disease, because some of them is just cold hard truth, you can't, and no one can, but we can all try. And another link I'll have down in the description is the warning signs of a heart attack or that someone's having a stroke. This could be really helpful if you just never seen it or been around it, and you could potentially save a person's life just by being able to call the ambulance at the right time or being able to get them to the hospital just in time, because you never know. That brings me to the next segment of this video, 5 diseases of the heart and their symptoms. Not going to go into much detail except for one, but to begin, there's coronary artery disease, which that is genetic, and it causes many problems because it's the narrowing of the arteries that supply blood to the heart. And if you didn't know, even though the heart has blood in it and it's pumping it, that doesn't give it the oxygen it needs to keep running. And once this begins happening, which it is because of a buildup of plaque in the arteries, it could potentially lead to death because of cardiac arrest. The heart would no longer be able to perform its functions because the tissues would die very quickly once they no longer have blood to supply oxygen to them. And this can be prevented just by a lifestyle change or just dietary habit. The next disease I'm going to very quickly talk about is myocarditis. In general terms, this is really just inflammation of the heart. It can be in any of the three layers. That's really bad. In the epicardium, myocardium, or the endocardium, you could wind up with inflammation causing the heart to not be able to pump enough blood, as it would restrict the volume of blood that can enter and leave it. And this can be caused by irritation, damage, or disease. Probably also now looking like, how can you damage the heart? Well, I don't know. Stuff happens. I'm not a scientist. You would have to ask your doctor. And this could mean death, because once your heart stops being able to pump the full volume of blood, it can't get through your system and circulate. And when you start losing that pressure, the blood trying to get back to your heart won't be able to pump in. But however, off that note, there's a much lighter disease which is actually a disorder, but I'm still putting it in this list anyways. Arrhythmia, which has many different types and is probably going to be one of the longer two of the 5 that I'm listing here. Arrhythmia is just a disturbance of the heart. Arrhythmia is the disturbance of the heart's conduction system. There's tachycardia, which is your heart beating at a fast pace, up to or more than 100 beats per minute. This can be very bad, as your heart would then, at this prolonged state of pumping, it would grow tired and shouldn't be tired. That'd be really bad because then it wouldn't pump. Carrying on, there's bradycardia, which is a slow heart rate, approximately 60 beats or lower. Now, this also does depend. If you are above 60 or you hover around the 55 to 65 range on average. If you are athletic, then this may be okay. Athletes tend to have a much lower heart rate on average. However, I do not know the exact science behind this, but that is what I believe. But even so, if your heart rate is below 60 beats per minute, then that could cause your organs and other tissues to not be able to gain enough oxygen with a low blood flow, as well as your body trying to get the blood back up to your heart may be even slower, as it doesn't have the constant force behind it. Then there's supraventricular arrhythmia. This arrhythmia begins in the atria. It refers to the lower chambers. Supra means above, and ventricular refers to the lower chambers of the heart, or ventricle. So the atria, which is above the ventricles, does not pump in correlation to the ventricles, causing blood to flow back, or blood to not pump properly or with enough force, or to not flow properly in any means, to not allowing the blood to travel, whether out of the pulmonary arteries or into the aorta. But ventricular arrhythmia, which begins in the ventricle, the lower chambers of the heart. Supraventricular and ventricular arrhythmia are arrhythmias that either affect the atria, which is above the ventricles, or the ventricle, and the ventricle would be thrown off with timing, or the atria would be thrown off with timing, not allowing blood to flow in a cohesive pattern. This could cause blood to flow backwards, or blood to just stop flowing at all, and I think that would be really bad. Then, finally, for arrhythmia, there's the bradyarrhythmia, which is a slow heart rhythm. This can be caused by disease in the heart. However, that may not be the reason why it developed. Any part of the conduction system could be affected by this, and it would cause it to either misfire or to just not move in cohesion, causing a delay and then a hit by the electrical working. So now that arrhythmia is out of the way, I will move on to the valvular heart disease. This is a consequence of aging, and valvular heart disease is the disease of the valves of the heart. The mitral, aortic, tricuspid, or pulmonary valve can be affected by this. This is simply when, as you get older, the tissues become worn out and they may not close how they are supposed to be. So this can cause blood to flow backwards as the heart pumps, or for blood to just stop flowing. There's not much more to this than when you age, this is what happens. Then the final one, cardiomyopathy. This is the disease that I would like to go into detail about. With this disease, heart muscles become dilated, enlarged, and flabby. This can be caused by genetics or stress. Typical symptoms will be shortness of breath, fatigue, and swelling of the feet, legs, and abdomen. However, you may be thinking, can it just be fixed by simply being not stressed as much anymore? Well, there is also genetics, so if it runs in your family, you may be at a very high risk of developing it. The disease itself can be marked by inflammation and damage of the heart muscle. However, knowledge of the actual reason is yet to be determined. It is estimated that several thousand patients per year are diagnosed in the United States alone. Usually, myocarditis attacks what would otherwise be a healthy person, and it is believed that 10 to 20% of all cases are sudden death. Myocarditis attacks what would otherwise be healthy people, at least usually. But because of that, it is believed that about 10 to 20% of all cases of sudden death in young adults are due to myocarditis. There are many causes of myocarditis, including viral infections, autoimmune diseases, and environmental toxins, as well as adverse reactions to medications. However, because of this, we cannot pinpoint a direct correlation to one or the other. As well as due to this, approximately 45% of all heart transplants in the U.S. result in cardiomyopathy because it can be caused by an autoimmune disease, which if you're getting another person's heart put in your body may react and start attacking it, causing further problems. So, to continue, what are the symptoms of myocarditis? The most common symptom is shortness of breath during exercise or exertion, usually developing 7 to 14 days after a viral illness, and can progress to shortness of breath at night, which may require that you sit up to breathe. Other symptoms could be fatigue, heart palpitations, and chest pains or pressure. Legs may swell, as well as arms. Myocarditis, rarely mind you, can cause a sudden loss of consciousness. It's believed that this could be because of abnormal heart rhythms. And patients diagnosed with myocarditis may experience some, all, or none of the following symptoms: shortness of breath, chest pain, lightheadedness, irregular heartbeat, or sudden loss of consciousness. The majority of cases, however, have no symptoms and are not diagnosed, which is why many young athletes can just suddenly die, which is very terrifying thought. You're 16, 17, 18, you're just out on the field practicing, and you just fall over. However, on a lighter note, how it is diagnosed, electrocardiograms can be used to record the electrical force, showing whether the heart is beating properly or not, as well as chest x-rays and echocardiograms, which send sound waves through your body too high-pitched to hear to analyze your blood flow. And you could be diagnosed by using a cardiac magnetic resonance image scan, MRI scan for short. And occasionally a heart biopsy is required to confirm the diagnosis. The long-term effects of myocarditis can vary highly. Many people recover heart function without long-term negative health effects and without return of symptoms. In a minority of cases, heart function may not improve. The individual may require long-term medical therapy and sometimes heart transplantation. The final question to ask is, can it be prevented? From the Myocarditis Foundation, which is where I've gotten all this information, and I will leave a link if you would like to read it directly. No lifestyle changes or medical treatments are known to prevent viral myocarditis. Because myocarditis is rare, information is limited regarding its causes and effective treatment. Myocarditis is not believed to be inherited. No genes are known to predispose people to myocarditis. However, as I said earlier, genetic and stress are two believed causes for this. As we don't have a sure enough answer, those would be very good ideas to look upon. Finally, finishing up, what can people do to protect themselves in general? Well, you could start by eating less salt, or practicing safety habits, or practicing basic safety habits such as washing hands and wiping down areas that could lead to sickness, like tables where you've had chicken or raw fish. This could be done to keep pesky little fingers from touching that surface and then touching a area of entrance to the body and causing sickness. Also, try to stay clear of areas with smoke or heavy with particulates, as a lung disease can cause a heart disease. Also, just try not getting older. That should work. Totally. Nah. But in all seriousness, what can people do to help as well is another question. And that's probably the best question that anyone could ask. You can, if you're a student, motivate teachers and administrators to make physical activity a part of the school day. I know that high schools could do this as well. It would be great for health, and it would begin these habits of constant activity and keeping your body moving and the blood flowing, as well as keeping your heart rate down and blood pressure lower. Living a healthy life can lead to much greater outcomes when trying to prevent a heart disease. After that, you could try asking doctors and nurses to be leaders in their communities by speaking out about ways to prevent heart disease, because they should all know, right? And finally, just create a serum that will give us eternal life just as long as we keep eating healthy. That'll totally work. There's nothing wrong with that plan. And to finish off my statement, just know that when we learn about this stuff and hear about it, not everything is going to be 100%. There are many more diseases and disorders that I did not list here, whether by name or by short explanation, because there are just too many. Disorders or diseases separately, it would take 20 minutes minimum to list them, let alone go over them. And all I can say is stay safe and live life, because there's nothing that you should be down about when listening to a video like this. It's sad and it's truthful and it's inciting, but remember, don't overdo it. You only get one life and you gotta live it. Peace.